Good afternoon from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Thank you for showing up. I know this is uh this is sometimes difficult to grind with your teeth, the stuff we're staying with here. But that is exactly, in my opinion, what we need to do to eat the tough meat of what it means to be um of what it means to be alive in these times. If we predicate emancipation on the comfortable familiar, then we might just be repeating the same logics that have engineered our captivity. So the fact that you're still showing up here, despite the fact that the medicine could get really unnerving, I thank you. That is my highfalutin way of saying thank you for showing up again and again to my siblings. Would it be okay if we unmuted ourselves and troubled the palimpsestic saffron clouds of war with our own infiltrating fugitive noise that knows how to think about the world being beyond captivity, that knows how to feel, that knows how to become water? So can we greet each other? Let's do name someone. Name you could switch your view to gallery view and see some names of people that strike you as interesting. And then call their names in your greeting like, "Hello, Bernard. I greet you. How you doing? Deborah Hart. How are you doing? Ann Peak. Let's do it. Okay, let's do it together. No less than five names, okay?
Hello, Becky.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello,
Jane.
Bernard.
Hello,
Lena.
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 Welcome
Oh,
back,
Sarita.
Dad.
Hi,
Albert.
Tina.
Hello,
Dio.
Don.
Lizanne.
Hi,
Hi,
Deborah.
Mayo.
It's nice to meet you.
Mario. Hello.
Lucia.
Hi.
Art, nice to see
Yeah.
you.
Monica.
Hi.
Hi.
Dancing with
Bruce.
Mom.
Bernard.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Sarita.
Hi.
Swati.
Andrea.
Shallow
This is
Monica.
too
Quiet already.
Oh, Bruce.
too
Rebecca.
fun.
Hi, Kyle. Hi, Leah. Hi. Eduardo.
Yo. Hi, Mitch.
This is actually easy for me because we could just keep going on for the 90 minutes and I just rest a little while. It is true. I woke up kind of with body aches today. I think it's the flu or something. I don't know what it is, but I just had to be here um, because we want to continue deep conversations, and I want to open us up with something prayerful. And by prayer, I don't mean um, a missive or some remarks to an already made God, right? I'm quite suspicious of the already made gods that populate modernity. Um, I'm speaking about the speculative, dancing, flirtatious, desirous possibilities of a world that exceeds the one that we seem to be stuck in. And I want to borrow from Edouard Glissant when he speaks about his right to opacity. I think the gods that are populating, that are coming through the cracks now, are opaque gods. They're oblique gods. They're not quite put in the family way yet. And there's work to do with them. There's difficult, monstrous, but emancipatory work to do with these crack features and figures. So I invite us to be in touch with our many bodies and and to stay with our breathing as much as possible. This is not a class that is anchored to the right idea or to some seminal enlightenment inspired notion of truth, right? It's not like he said something and I disagree with it. therefore all hell breaks loose. No, the world is much more interesting than agreement and disagreement. Entanglements are quite complicated and complex. So I want to invite you to be in touch with grace, the abundance that exceeds the algorithms. Grace never fits within an economy. Grace exceeds the mathematics of transaction. Grace says, yes, but there's something else. There's something else. There's excess here. So with that, let's play with it. And I just want to get a feeler here that everyone received the slides up to our last session together. And I hope you're chewing on it and reading it. And I hope you're bristling and you're nodding and you're shedding or something in your conversations. That's all I can hope for. Not to convert you to my point of view, which would be impoverished, but to wrestle with you. The divine and the sacred are in the wrestling together, not in the arrival. Okay. So I wanna Lizanne is saying you didn't receive slides. Okay, you're maybe this was sent. My sister Wei, I think this was sent to everyone.
This was sent to everyone who's on the email list. So if you have registered or if you have let us know your email.
Maybe it's because it came through Kabanda Kabibi. So maybe it's gone to Kabanda Kabibi and not, which is the African knot of carnival. So I'll find out that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, they're critically important, and I type every word of it. So I'm putting a lot of care to it. Yes, let's begin in this way. The last time, in last two sessions, we started speaking about cognitive decline. We started speaking about the declension, the shrinking citizen, the idea that it's not just that democracy is a practice, it's that it's dependent on the flattening of monsters. It depends on the normalization of a pure landscape, right? If you actually stay with mythological accounts, I'm a James Hillman fan. So if you stay with the poetry, the stories, it seems like before civilizing moralities take root, monsters are always imprisoned, shackled, or killed. It's like a sacrificial offering. I spoke about Theseus and the genocide of the Minotaur. I call it genocide because, in my account, the Minotaur had children. This is my own speculative fictioning. But it goes back all the way to Zeus and the war for Olympus, right? The Olympiads or Olympians fought the Hecatoncheires, some of my favorite monsters. There were three of them. They had 100 heads and 100 arms. They needed to be imprisoned. Was it in Hades or I can't remember, but they needed to be imprisoned in order for the golden utopian city to rise. We are saying that we are accommodated, and I cannot stress this enough. The things that you have taken for granted as yours, as belonging to you, your PhD, your claims to intelligence or eloquence, they are accommodations. They're not essential properties of a stable self. And when those accommodations start to leak, then we notice things differently. The noticing becomes different. The discourse becomes different. I suggest that what I call the shrinking citizen, as a result of what I also call the second fall, is that those Minotaurian children are creeping back to the surface. And it means we can no longer claim to be as well put together as we think, because all we are indebted to is reminding us, you aren't put together well. I've been carrying you on my back, right? I said this yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I can't remember. Life is a blur now, but I spoke about the black men in Rio de Janeiro who in the early 1900s or early in 1800s, I think, in the city's experiment with a public latrine system. The Rio de Janeiro was modeled after Paris. The mayor wanted it to be as glorious as Paris. And so they wanted a reputable European style latrine system. But they didn't have the technologies. So they used black slaves' bodies to carry sewage from the homes to where they were dumped. And these bodies were so marked by the toxicity of the waste they carried, so stripped and poisoned by it, that they were called tigers. I think it's tigers or something like that. They were called tigers because they had become marked by it. So the idea that I go to my toilet and I flush it, and there's immediacy, there's an immediate response, and I go back to my room and I say the world is working well. Actually, there's a mediation, there's a mediated world in the middle that is holding aloft the sense of immediacy, the sense of the obvious, right? Think about the shoemaker, that old story that we learned as kids. I think all of us, right? They would come out in the morning. They had no leather. They had nothing. They would come out in the morning and they would see a shoe there. You know the story, right? We all do. The shoemaker and his wife were poor. They had nothing else to give, but then they would come out in the morning and shoes, brand new shoes would be there. Who made them? We don't know, but they sold them anyway until they found out little fairies were working in the background. Well, little fairies are working behind your phone. You press and dial a number and it immediately connects. Wow, the brilliance of technology. No, little fairies, in this case, Congolese children, are pressing, are holding aloft your sense of immediacy, your sense of the obvious, right? You press numbers and an instruction on your computer and the internet, and it responds like this. If it doesn't respond fast, the company providing the service tells you it's just a matter of an upgrade. If you get the larger service, it'll be faster. But the mediation is much more complicated than that. We must speak about data centers in Africa. We must speak about the long lines that disturb ecologies and electrical communication, right? The world that is often hidden and tucked away in the crease of immediacy is the Minotaurian excess that we cannot accommodate. But what happens when they show up? What happens when one day a Congolese child knocks on your door? What happens then? Then politics has to change. Then it's no longer about just calling your senator or being righteous or being virtuous or being laudable, because the world is no longer the same. And that's why we speak about the disruptions to the political and the infrapolitical. And that's why we're staying with the parapolitical, staying with the shimmering lines that no longer close neatly. We are in times of declension. We're in times of strange conjugations. Our bodies are being mispronounced. The guardrails are falling apart. That is often misinterpreted as pathology, but what if it were? What if those were gifts? Gifts. So I wanna go back to that very, very powerful. Though I went further than I wanted to. But the invitation was to stay with that incident, the BAFTA incident, right? And we're going to discuss that today. I don't have as many slides this time. I usually produce like 200 slides, but they're just about 173 now. Kidding. But I want us to talk more. We won't have breakouts. We'll keep the energies in the plenary. We'll keep it here and we'll talk some. There's still some things to talk about that I've written, and I've written painstakingly because I would like you to study with them afterwards, right? So I've typed everything out. I feel energetic, and that's a good sign. Orisha is a blessing. So Good to be here. But let's start in this way. Given the tracings that I've made, the breaking open of the subject, the breaking open of the voter, right? It used to be the case that we think the voter has this belief system inside of them. And the voter carries this intact belief structure and goes to the voting booth and materializes the belief. It's subject, belief, and action. The subject precedes thought, and the thought becomes action, and the action is a decision. Something like it's how modernity sequentializes agency. But what if something here is stranger? So I want to ask this question to everyone, and this is an exercise. Can you write in the chat 3 things you believe in? It could be, I believe in apple pie, or I believe maple syrup is not all that it's cracked up to be, or I believe that this is that. It could be as whatever, and it could be, I believe in justice for all. I believe Black Lives Matter. I believe Black lives don't matter. Whatever it is, put it in the chat. Just 3 beliefs that you're in touch with, right? Just put it in there. I believe in love. I believe, yeah, I believe in ebony and ivory living together in, how does the song go? Lazan, how does the song go? Ebony and ivory.
Live together in perfect
Thank you, thank
harmony.
you, thank you. My brain is acting up today. Yes, I believe in that. Just put it there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe in hope, breathing, music, love, connection. Humans are born kind. Yes, 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 yes. I believe in nature, the universe, creation. Thank you. Thank you very much for obliging me. Now, the second point of this exercise, if you're participating, and I invite you to, is how did you come to this belief? Not why do you believe it, but how did it come to become yours? How did it become yours? Could you think about one of those beliefs you've written? How did it come to be yours? What room were you sitting in? What food were you eating? What was the nature of the furniture, if you can recall this? How did it become yours? I believe in love. Okay, but how did that become yours? I was sitting in the woods. Good. I fell from a tree. Let me get 3 of my siblings here to, if you want to share, just raise up your hand, a digital hand, and I want to hear our voices speak it out. How did it become to be yours? Not why do I believe it, or why is it true, or is it true? Those are the ways the accommodation restores the logic. But how did it come to become yours? Does anyone want to speak with me about that? Okay, Lazanne and Dave and Nana Marie. That's it. Good. Could we spotlight Lazanne? Just come on, just real quick.
Wow.
There you go.
Hi. Sorry, I'm chatty tonight, clearly. For me, I don't have a moment of coming to it becoming my belief, but it feels like immersing deeper in experience and coming to know it each time. So there feels to me like it's an experiencing that slowly seeps in and becomes, in inverted commas, mine.
Okay, choose one of those beliefs that you have, just one of them that you did you write anyone down?
I believe in life.
I believe in life. How did it come to be the case that
I
happened?
experienced it in nature. I experienced it as always giving me joy.
Yes.
I experienced the loss of family members and I saw destruction.
Yes.
And I came to believe that the good and this, what I wanted to believe in, what I believe, was in this constant feeling I had of being, of life returning, of life becoming.
So that's where it came from. These experiences that are not reducible to you, it came from there. It came from there, right?
Very
You didn't
much so.
spontaneously choose it. It was contextual. It was based in place and momentum and history, right?
Also questioning, sorry if I can just add, because I grew up in a supremacist society, a very obviously named supremacist society. So I grew up constantly questioning. So I think that also counts somewhere,
Yes.
because maybe I
Yes.
wouldn't have known to question if I had been immersed in a different kind of reality, but I knew that
Thank
wasn't
you.
real.
Thank you, sister. We're doing some good work here. We're doing some
Thank
good work
you.
here. Let's listen to
Thank
our brother Dave.
Bless you. Thank you.
Bless you, brother.
When I was born, when I was in the womb, my mom was told by her doctors at that time that she could have a glass of wine and drink. So FASD came into my being when I was in the womb, and it was like fire in the water. Um, and I had been born with a question, or it came to me. This question is, when I looked outside of that after I was born, why are people so cruel to each other? Why are they so disconnected? Why can't they see? I asked these questions lots. So from those questions and from the pain and suffering that I endured, my belief is in equitable love.
Right, right. I love that you even trace it back to before you became an individual, right?
Mm,
Like
mm,
like you're stitching and braiding with things that preceded your becoming almost. And you're
mm,
saying this is where it came from. It came from this, and the question may have come from this. That
mm.
is we're thinking processually. And that is scandalous to modernity. But let's keep going. Thank you, brother, for sharing that. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
Um, my Nana Marie, say Mary. Mary. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Now
Oh,
you're good.
this is so amazing, as is every amazingly sacred moment in this kind of field. So I'm just going to piggyback on my brother and sister, and mine actually goes to before I was born and past lives.
Yes.
Then the shocks that I
Yes.
experienced, first with conception, because I was conceived in alcohol. And then second, the trauma of a birth that was planned, a planned C-section where I was drugged along with my mother. And then shock after shock after shock in my life's experience that so like one of the things I did as a young person was body surfing, just no gear, just going diving into the waves head first and coming to a realization similar to Leanne, that it's coming at me in waves, and that every relationship experience, whether it's with humans or with waves or with the sun, and whether it's a shock experience or not, that holding that and wondering about that, that's a sacred moment. And that the response, even to the shock moments, like what you described last time with BAFTA or currently with the war, that every single one of those gives me the opportunity to interface with that in a sacred, precious way and offer, and every offering for each thing will be unique, and to offer from my heart field what is mine to offer back out to the world. And so my belief is in interbeing, interbecoming, and interplay. And that we give that. That's what I can offer. And
Right.
that's how I can be present
Right.
with what is, whether it brings me to tears, which I've certainly been occupying a lot recently, whether it brings me to joy,
Yes.
whether it brings me to laughter or despair,
Yes.
that it's all sacred.
Thank you.
And if we can be with the discomfort, as you continue to remind us,
Yes.
it's okay. We can just be with it. We
Thank you.
don't have to do anything about it necessarily, and we might do something about it.
Mm.
Thank you so much, dear brother Bayo.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know
you.
I treasure you.
I treasure you too. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nana. Yes, yes. What you're doing there is the poetics of wandering. You're becoming opaque. There's something about the way you're playing with it that does not resolve along the static and boundaried and fixed lines in which we think about these things. You're saying belief. Maybe it's not even mine. Maybe I'm participating in it. Maybe it's not that we believe. Maybe it's that belief enlists us. Right? Maybe something else is happening. I said only three people, but there's no way that I cannot listen to my my dear auntie and mama Brenda and also Kara. So we'll just Brenda and Kara. Okay. You're
Okay,
okay. Now
I'm
you're good.
muted.
Now you're
Yeah.
good.
Oh, geez. My heart is full to be here and to find you again, dear brother Bayo. What I put in was love, faith, and resilience that
Yes.
were given to me. And I think you will probably in some way share this with me as
Yes.
a person coming from the African diaspora. And indeed, all kinds of people have been through hell. That's
Yes.
true.
Yes.
But being African American and having traced the lineage back to my relatives who somehow freed themselves and fought in the Civil War, in the Revolutionary War, in
Mm.
spite of everything, in spite of having been brought here as enslaved, they freed themselves by being part of the revolution. I am supposed to be in the Daughters of the American Revolution, okay? And going back, though, when I did my Black African ancestry, it goes back to, it said, someplace about 600 to 800 years ago, a
Mm.
Mende woman. So that
Mm.
would be the area of Sierra Leone. And
Yes.
somehow
Yes.
out of that lineage, all of that, as I said, all of those ancestors, how did we survive?
Yes.
How
Yes.
did we make it through?
Yes.
I think about the spirituals that my mother sang. I think about the hell that my brothers went through growing up as young Black men in Harlem.
Yes.
And we came through.
Yes.
We
Yes.
keep coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And it is only, I said resilience and faith, but really behind all of that is love,
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
And love being, again, how do we put into a word something as strong as what we call love?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like some kind of generality, but I bet everybody here knows what I mean. And I
Yes.
know everybody here has that, or we wouldn't be here.
Mm.
So I love you all. And I know that that is going to find, as UB Blake said in his musical Shuffle Along, love will find a way.
By the way,
Ashe,
thank you. Thank you, Mama. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Oh, beautiful. Tracing our bodies. The conceit of modernity is that our bodies are still surveillable, locatable, and final.
Mm,
Oh, but what you're tracing is like, oh, my body is long. My body stretches across the Atlantic Ocean. My
mm,
body is still reverberating with the Mende people in Sierra Leone. My body is a time traveling device. It does more than just stay within here. My body is not just now. My body is then and yet to come, right? So who's the believer, right? Who's the believer? The believing is long as well, right?
Yes.
I did not summon myself historically. I am connected with the ecology of becoming. A cloud of grandmothers, someone said so beautifully. Thank you. Thank you, Mama Brenda. And let's play with Kara. Here we go.
I feel like so many words have already covered what I wanted to speak to, which was interplay,
Yes.
and being enlisted, being available, just
Yeah.
being available to sort of be recruited almost
Yes.
by certain ideas or movements of energy. I'm not quite sure how that happens, but I feel like your word reverberation and maybe resonance, there's a resonance that meets and participates. I'm not quite sure, but resonance is always something that I feel is very important in my life and maybe speaks to some of that interplay. So I don't know
Beautiful.
if any of that makes sense, but
No, you're not knowing the word to use is just as eloquent as if you could if you figured out what word to use. I often think about the chemical sounding word entrainment, right?
mm,
And it's almost like how fluids get caught up in other the flows of other dynamics, right? It's like putting blue paint in some cauldron and putting another paint there and watching how they just take on the different shapes and they're no longer the same shape or the same texture or hue any longer because they're being entrained. And the alchemy of entrainment is almost like the enlistment of belief and believing, which we have domiciled into stable, surveillable citizen subjects. But the invitation I'm making now is what if believing is not, what if the believer is not the center of believing? What if it's not as stable as that? What if it's process and flow? Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. The question that I want to, and I thank you all for sharing so beautifully. The question that I'm playing with to get into our stuff today is around that. Who owns the belief, right? The ways we speak about it are usually unexamined. Like it's my belief. If I were to ask you all, if you were in a different time and place, if you were born in Afghanistan, and if you did not have the experiences you had, would you still have the same beliefs? I think the obvious answer is no. If Dave did not go through the experiences in utero that he did, would he still come out to say these things or believe in the ways that he did? And I'm not speaking of some fatalistic, deterministic account of belief. I'm speaking of something more radical. Um, I formulated a concept about a year ago in close conversation with a colleague at Yale University, Professor Tamar Gendler. Not that I've met her, but she has a concept called ALEAF. 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 I don't know how to. It's ALIEF. It's really, really strange. I'll tell you what she's talking about. Have you ever, and I'm sounding like an ad, have you ever um, lost your keys and searched in the most improbable places for the keys when you started to get desperate? Like you started to, and not even keys. I had a professor when I was an undergrad, long time ago, that he came out from his building to come to class, came out from his house. His car was missing. His car was stolen. And he looked around and he went back into the house to look under the chairs for the car. Right. He was looking under the chairs. He was so like do, have you looked twice in your pocket for a missing wallet? You know what I'm talking about? Like you've checked there already, but you keep going back there. I'll never forget going to Paris a long time ago with EJ, who's my wife. And EJ is a biologist. She's trained, she has a PhD, she knows how things work. I mean, she's not an engineer, but we went to the Eiffel Tower and the Eiffel Tower of course, there are sections of it where there's this transparent glass, so you can look all the way down. You have to climb it, and then or the elevator, and then you look all the way down. EJ could not step on this transparent glass. She knew that the likelihood of it shattering under her footfall was nothing. There was no likelihood that the Eiffel Tower would decide, you know what, I've been standing for 100 years, but now is a good time to crack open. But she couldn't walk on it. She was convinced, I have to say, rationally, that it will hold up, but her body could not move her on the surface, right? This is what Tamar Gendler calls appleaf. She's trying to remind us that believing is not rational. It's not that we choose, because it almost feels contradictory. You could actually believe something strenuously and your body acts in the opposite direction, right? You could know that, and I say this all the time, you could visit a therapist and the therapist is saying, well, this is going to kill you. This act is going to kill you. Here's the data. And you believe the data. You're like, yes, I know it'll kill me. And I definitely don't want to die. I want to live long. And yet your body goes in the opposite direction, right? It's that believing is not rational. But in my conversation with her work, I felt that wasn't even enough. It's not just that believing is not rational, it's that believing is not individual. It doesn't come from stable individuals because you're not a stable individual. That's that's the accommodation. You're not stable, I'm sorry. You are spread out, you are long, you're complicated, you're opaque, and you're oblique. You're not as well put together as modernity tells you are. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at an accommodation. The image is an accommodation because if there were other kinds of mirrors possible there, like a monster is a mirror. A monster exposes you to your porosity. If you were to look even closer, let's take the image for granted, you would find that there are, for instance, y'all have heard me say this before. I don't know if you've heard me speak about the demo decks. Does anyone here know about the demo decks? Anyone here? There are critters called, I don't know what the plural form of a demo dex is, but the demo dex or the demo dexes or the demo die sounds like a good band name. They are the hybrid offspring of they're the hybrid offspring of alien-looking creatures and the tardigrade. You know the tardigrade? The water bear is called this molecular creature that can withstand a nuclear holocaust. The Demodex actually lives in your face, in your cheeks. There are microscopic creatures that live in your face. When you rub your cheeks like this, you're actually colonizing their lands. You're disturbing their territory. They live in your face. They live in your face. They grow up there. They're in the pores of your skin. There's no beauty regime that can get rid of them. There's no whatever ad that can dismiss them. They're right there. They're born there. They make love there. They grow up there. They go to college there. They have land acknowledgement rights there. They do stuff in your face, right? So whose face is it? You're not the believer, right? It's that you are populated. You are unwieldy. You're unwieldy. The accommodation wants you to be put together, but you're unwieldy. It's not even that you're whole. You are distributed, which is denser and more serious than just being a whole unit. So Tamar Gendler said, believing doesn't seem to be rational. There's something else at work here. I wanted to trace that something else, and I called it appleaf. So APOLIEF. Apple is the prefix that means away from, right? I'm saying that the believer is not the stable subject. We are part of believing enlistments. And this is really important. I needed to stay with this and with you because it plays into how we're thinking about the subject, how we're thinking about the BAFTA incident, the issues in the United States today, and what politics is and has always been, a parapolitical accommodation. Right? That's why we're staying with this. So believing is like an eco-cognitive foam, right? It doesn't, it doesn't, it doesn't credit the believer as its anchorage. It's foam-like, it's fungal-like, it's mycelial, right? If you were born in a different country, if you ate a different kind of food, you would probably gesture out into the world believing differently. So it doesn't start with the believer that believes. Believing precedes the believer that believes. Appleaf. It's just an unwieldy word, and I'm playing here. So let's go into some of, with this provocation, let's go into some of the stuff that we need to get through. And this is where we stopped the last time. Can everyone see this, by the way? Good, good. So I put a pause there. Remember where we're coming from. We're saying in the last class, I mentioned that we've got it topsy-turvy. We're speaking about cognition as an ecological thing. It's not here. It's eco-cognition. We don't think. Thinking enlists us. It's not that we think, oh, we're so addicted to the world starting with us. The world starting with us as the agential center, even in the way we name things. Oh, that's artificial intelligence. We are obviously the natural intelligence. What if intelligence has no qualms about artifice and nature? What if intelligence is stranger than we think? I just read recently that a cow started to use tools, and scientists don't know what to do with that. Nana, you saw this? You saw this. It was so fascinating. Because we usually speak about intelligence with the anthropod creatures, right? The ones that look like us. Dolphins, yes. Monkeys and chimpanzees, yes. But cows are using tools? That doesn't fit but then again, intelligence might enlist plastic in how it comes to materialize. We're not in charge of the world. So I said something about bias, that it's bias, the word, the etymological root of bias is oblique, diagonal, slantwise. And I'm suggesting that bias precedes rationality. Rationality is not in opposition to bias. Rationality is bias enthroned. It's a form of bias. Just like Saidiya Hartman, Saidiya said that facts are the state's preferred fiction. Facts are the state's preferred fiction. Black scholar, dear sister, facts are the state's preferred fiction. I'm saying rationality is the state's preferred bias, right? It's not that bias is a glitch in the subject. If bias is how perception comes to happen, right? But there are certain kinds of forms or dances of bias that are accommodated as a straight line, included as a straight line. I invoked Jean Vervaeke with the idea of the transjective. Transjectivity refuses the binary of subjectivity versus objectivity, right? Oh, you don't get it. You're not believing right. It still doesn't come quite close to noticing that believing has always been ecological. It's not some internal distortion that you have to fix to meet the glorious world of external truths. It's that we are transjective believings. We know only in the between. We're in the middle of a conversation that includes fungus and microbe and cloud and dirt and stone and algorithm and plastic and tree and building and architecture and intensity and ancestrality. We are in the middle of the conversation. We didn't start the conversation. And so transjectivity disturbs this account of an internal world that must dress up nicely to meet the external world. It understands perception, distortion, and cognition as relational events shaped in the in-between, at the interface between world and psyche. Biases are not distortions of an original truth, but ripples in the transjective field. I've heard it many times, oh, they're superstitious. The goal of modernity is to relieve us of our dear superstition so we can come to the light, the white light of truth. But that discountenances how even that account of truth is historical. It's premised on the bodies, the cadavers, the black refusals and elisions and dismissals and exclusions and oppressions that made it possible for science to even claim or make a claim to glory, right? It's that every form of knowing is accommodated. And bias is the rippling, dancing, differentiating world of perception that implicates ocean in how we come to think, implicates fungus in how we come to think, implicates what we ate this morning and how we believe. That's bias. Oblique lines dancing. Just some of them just accommodated as a straight line so we can walk straight. So this moves us towards a post-humanist neo-material understanding of cognition, a theory where error or bias is not incorrect processing, but the very logic of how difference shows up in an entangled system, right? This disturbs the account that the MAGA hat-wearing voter got it wrong. I'm so sorry. I wish that could be the case, that they're just wrong and all they need is facts. But we don't move in the world that way. I used in the other time examples that who's the voter? Well, the voter is not the person who just walks in the voting booth. The voter is parenting styles. The voter is the food we eat. The voter is all of these things implicated. This is not a dismissal of accountability. It's a stretching of accountability. It's actually taking accountability seriously. We take accountability through the narrow lenses that only focuses on the enlisted, idealized, reified subject. But to take ourselves seriously, to take Mama Brenda's words seriously about love is to notice that love hyphenates everything. Love is not a bridge. Love is the hyphenation, the porosity of our bodies. That's what love is. So biases are not distortions of original truths. They move us towards, well, I think I repeated something here. They move us towards a neo-material understanding of cognition. Bias emerges from the etymology of oblique, describing the cognitive field. We pathologize bias because we're accommodated into relations that isolate the subject as monumental instead of a dynamic, open-ended practice. If you leave with anything, I want you to leave with this idea that you are a dynamic, open-ended practice. You're not a self-navigating, a backgrounded world. You are the world in its echoing of selfhood for a time, or with an idea of temporality. I don't also want to background time, right? You are a trans subject. You're not a subject. You are a trans subject. You are the traffickings of bacterial activisms. And I'm not saying that bacteria is living in you. I'm saying you are the practice of bacteria. You are the practice. It's not that, oh, I have these things living on me. No, there's no you that is stable that accommodates bacteria. It's the secretions of Demodex in your face that keeps your face the way it is. It's not that you accommodate. They're not squatting. You are them. They are you. But the modern human subject in its Enlightenment architecture is imagined as a self-contained processor of data, right? And then bias in this understanding is a deviation, a moralized and diagnostic pathology of misperception. Politics encourages us to see those who do not agree with us as getting it wrong. Do your research, F around and find out. You made a mistake. Right, fine. These lines often need to be drawn, but we always draw these lines at the risk of repeating the machinations of a political system that is predicated on harm. So we are trained, especially in the United States as a glorious example. We're trained to see the other side as getting it wrong. You got it wrong, and you got it wrong because there's something wrong inside of you. It's your belief, you see. There's something wrong inside you that made it possible for you to do the wrong thing. And that's accountability as the machine wants you to notice it. But what if we stretched, like Nana said, what if we held the thing in its shimmering brilliance and noticed that it's it's not as simple as the algorithm, the formulas we're used to, right? So in a transjective field, bias is not an error that occurs within a subject. It is the form taken by perception as it emerges between subject and world. It is not located. It is patterned through relation. Every perception is angled. Every cognition is partial. It's not limitation or failure that needs correction. It's how perception becomes possible. I told of an example of how a people living by the ocean would think differently than the people who are living in the hinterlands, right? When the wall came down, Berlin, and the wall that divided Germany, that partitioned Germany, scientists, social scientists, immediately recognized, not immediately, but it took some time to recognize that those people who lived East Germany seemed to be naturally suspicious. They were constantly looking over their shoulders because they lived in an arrangement that it made sense to believe in that way. So who is the believer? Them? No, it's not just them, it's the walls, it's the arrangement. We used to think isolating the thing and dislocating or dismissing the arrangement. The arrangement made those bodies. They were the echoes of an arrangement. And this is why I speak about echo forming. They were biased in a particular way. In the West Germany, so to speak, was biased in terms of consumerism and its alliance building work with the United States and with the rest of the so-called free world, right? That is not because they were virtuous, right? It's not because they decided, you know what, I support the free world. No, it doesn't come down to the individual. That's hard to notice. What did I say here? To speak of bias as pathology, as, check out the time, as a failure of reason is to speak from within the epistemic whiteness of purity, clarity, and neutrality. This is the logic that says if you would only remove your biases, you would see clearly. But clarity, as Edouard Glissant would say, clarity is colonial as well. Right? You only see at all because of your situatedness, your angle, your entanglement. To see, to feel, to be is to be slightly angled. We're not straight walkers, we're diagonal beings. And we're angled with ocean and soil and microbes. It's only this angle that makes perception possible. Modernity is, again, the hospitality to straight lines and the dismissal of angularity as pathology. But the monsters that are coming through the surface are forcing angularity, and the gods of straight lines are desperate to keep things straight. I say here that a bias exposes the lie of the bounded monumental subject. It calls forth the trans subject. It calls forth my mama Brenda, whose body is long and prestigious and complicated. If we're to give an account of our bodies, we wouldn't stop, because your body is not just what shows up, your body is what refuses to show up as well. Bodies are not just made of presences, little morsels of presence. They're made of absences as well. You're not a being contained within skin and skull. You're distributed across atmospheres, kin, memory, trauma, affect, soil, minotaurs, plastic, and dream. So the trans subject is always relational. This is not a subject of saying, I want to be more entangled. No, no, it's not being more entangled. It's not something you do on Tuesdays. Like, I think I'm going to be more entangled with the world on Wednesdays. I think I have time between work and grocery shopping. No, it's not something you are not possible if you're not angled. Bias is, therefore, in my view, the signature of trans-subjectivity, not its flaw. To be biased is to be midstream, is to be in conversation, is to be implicated, entangled, and moved. It's not the fog on the lens. It's the ripple in the pond, the bending of light, the patterned noise that reveals the contours of the world becoming. To study bias is to study relational affect, positionality, historic entanglement. Where does that leave rationality? I like this slide. Rationality is state-sponsored bias, like I said. It's accommodated obliquity. It's hosted as a straight line. Rationality is bias with a permit. It's bias with a permit. It's bias with a permit. It's bias with walking papers, right? It's bias enthroned. Rationality has never been neutral. To those of us who study who are into science studies, right? We know that it's not the politics of the experiment is something to be stayed with. It's not that we go into a lab that is divorced from the world of things or the politics of things, and then we alchemize little morsels of truth that are divorced. Oh, this is truth. This is a fact. No, science is deeply political. The history of public medicine, Tuskegee trials, all of that, right? Bodies of Black bodies in the United States that needed to be pilfered, that were pilfered in order for science to make its claims to glory. Science is deeply political. There's no form of knowing that isn't political. Rationality is not neutral. It is a colonial geometry. It's a grid laid over a trembling world. It is the accommodation of the slant. So we're back to that subject then. Who swore? Because this is important to stay with. This is important to stay with. It felt like a gleaming point in our conversation the last time. And it definitely has become something else in culture. As expected, it has already crystallized into anticipated positionalities. It's apologize, harm, subject, victim, reward, remedy. It's the categories have rushed back into the scene. The shimmering brilliance of it has escaped. And so it's the crack is been eaten. Here's what I think. Who swore? Not Davidson. Davidson, if you remember, was the Tourette's body that was screaming harmful words at the ceremony. But the question is not whether it had impact. It's who swore. We started out speaking about belief, whose belief it is. How did it come to be yours? And we all felt, there's something more here that doesn't feel situated within my breast. It seems that believing is more prestigious than the subject that believes. But that's not what the culture is saying, though. That's not how we are holding this moment. Immediately, it was Davidson swore. My suggestion, and I do not claim truth. I claim my right to opacity. This is not correct because I said it. It is the urgency of my skin and my body to not be accommodated within whiteness any longer. I want to fly. There's something else available. There's grace here. And if I think along the parameters of the familiar, even at the risk of being dismissed or being hated, I would have done even more irreparable harm. It's not Davidson, but it's not nobody. in my sense, it's the accommodation that swore. I'll say more. The racial slur is constitutive material of the mound. You know, we've been speaking about mounds. The God that is the shape of experience is like a mound, right? That buries bones and has to maintain this burial ceremony so that the modern subject can thrive. Did it come from a body or a belief inside a body? That's what the mound wants you to think. But the racial slur is already in the mound. The English language, the colonial history, the racial infrastructure. This is what the tumulus of the citizen subject is made of. Every English speaker is a tumulus built over that word. The neurotypical accommodation covers it, buries it under the choreography of what is and isn't sayable. We all feel, to be specific here, we all feel that word. And even when it threatens to surface, it diverts. And then we tell ourselves we are virtuous for not saying it. And virtue is the algorithm of settlement, right? This is why politics collapses along the lines of, is it laudable or is it condemnable? We don't know how to think in the middle. We think only in switches. What if it's the tumulus, the mound, that is the swearer here? So this is what I just described, that you notice the word approaching in your body, the choreographic line diverts, the mouth says something else, and the self credits itself with the choice not to say it. This is what the accommodation does as well. Because you are not saying it, you are virtuous. So you are one of the good ones. You're a good one. You're a good white person for not saying it. And that's why this is why white righteousness maintains whiteness. So, I'm a good white person. I've been to a workshop, so I know the drill. I know the right words to say. But virtue maintains captivity. But that's not even virtue. It's the accommodation functioning smoothly. But when the accommodation cracks, in this case, in the body of someone with Tourette's, or also in rage, not just Tourette's, in exhaustion, in the slip of the tongue, in the dream, what surfaces is what was always there. I know of people who have dreamt of saying the word and came and said, oh my goodness, I said the word, where do I, in my dream? You are part of something larger. You're participating in bones and burials and Elijahs and monstrosities that are beyond yourself. You're not walking clean. Your virtue will not buy you dissociation. You are part and entangled with the world that is complicated. Davidson's body is a site where the covering failed, but the word didn't come from Davidson's beliefs. It came from the mound we all stand on. I should correct that. I don't want to say we all stand on the mound. We are the mound in its dynamics. So Davidson at the BAFTAs and the voter in the booth are the same figure, seen from different cracks in the same mound. Both produce speech or action that the self then retroactively claims as intentional or disclaims as involuntary. Both reveal that the sovereign subject was always a fiction. Real, gravitationally effective, but not the author of what it does. The voter, we are learning, is not the author of the vote. The vote is the highway, it's the architectural piece, it's the food you're eating, and it's the food that's eating you. It's the ocean, that's the vote. The vote is dispersed and large and federational and parliamentary. The vote is not what crystallizes in your choice. That's what the accommodation wants you to think. And so it pathologizes that which lies outside the individual. The word that Davidson's body produced is structurally identical to the vote that the voter's body produces. Both come from the accommodation. Both are shaped by gravitational lines that precede and exceed the self. Both are narrated as either my choice or not my choice. This is how we think. This is how we think. I'm Yoruba. I'm Yoruba. Part of my believing, and it's not even my believing, part of the believing that claims me in its weathering is the idea that the self is cross-Atlantic, right? Because my people were taken across the Atlantic and they traveled with tricksters, and those tricksters became art forms and food types and musical preferences, right? I don't know how to see. This is my disability. I don't know how to see bodies as in charge or masters of what they produce. And it's just the case that I was gifted with a son who reminds me that I'm not all that with his autistic fabulosity. He reminds me that I remember being in a restaurant with him and I was getting anxious because he was jumping all over the place. And I wanted to be prim and proper and polite to the other people in the restaurant. And I said, Kea, could you just sit down? Could you just sit down for a while? And he said, but Dada, I can't. I cannot sit down. And it was the words from the body of a 6-year-old boy. And it landed with such philosophical depth. I can't sit down. Where did you get the idea that we are in charge of our own bodies? So does this mean no accountability, as you might be hearing it? No. Accountability shifts. It shifts from the sovereign subject who chose to speak or vote to the accommodation that produced both the act and the forgetting that normally covers its origins. The question isn't, should we blame Davidson or excuse him? That's what the accommodation brings to you immediately. The question is, what is this mound made of? What does it mean that the word is in the mound? That the biases are in the mound? That the vote is shaped by weather, architecture, colonial history, generational trauma? Fred Moten says this too. It says whiteness is a practice. Popular culture would like to reduce whiteness to a sin. Like if you're white-skinned, then you must apologize for it. Apologize for your whiteness. And then the apology becomes a resuscitation of whiteness because whiteness is a practice and Black bodies like mine are getting good at practicing whiteness. We're good at it. Whiteness is a practice. It's not, it's not an identity. Accountability becomes collective and structural and ongoing. And this is not because everyone is guilty, but because everyone is a tumulus made of the same earth. The work isn't to find the sovereign subject to blame. The work is to stop reburying the bone every time it surfaces. But we've done it and we're doing it right now. All the pieces that have come out in Slate, and my dear sister, Professor Erin Manning, sent me some pieces from Slate. I'm not saying that's all that's possible or available now. There might be some publications that are staying with the trouble, but most of it is we need to apologize. Yes. Someone is to blame, and the same algorithm is resuscitated. And that's why I end with this. I Swear is the film. The title contains both the sovereign subject, I swear to tell the truth, and its dissolution, I swear, involuntarily, ceaselessly, without authorship. Every voter walks into the booth and says, I choose. The title of that film, the film of democracy, is also I Swear. It is both an oath and a confession that the oath was never fully the self's to make. I have something else that I will leave for the next class. It's something dangerous to say, but I'll leave it for the next class because it will take some time to get through. And it involves the steady and slow introduction of concepts that I believe can do some work in helping us notice what I feel very strongly about. And what Martin Luther King, I think, was beginning to feel at the end of his life, that justice is a secret agent. That if we get our way, we are possibly, very possibly, fixed back into the system that made the harm possible. And this is why Martin Luther King was like, wait. We're integrating into the burning house. Is that the arrival point back into the fire? So in the next class, as a provocation, we'll stay with something very powerful to stay with. And I'll invite you to bring a glass of water or something that could help you ground yourself. That the highway, and this is the point, the highway no longer leads to places that are interesting. It's not that harm isn't real. No, it's that harm is stranger than we think. And sometimes the remedy is a double agent because it fixes the problem, but also fixes you in the logic of the problem. It's like what that German student when I was teaching in the UK said to me when I was telling my story about walking through an airport and being pulled aside for secondary screening. I get that all the time. I'm used to it now. It's part of my airport traveling ritual. I'm always, almost always, no matter how I bend away my glance, they just pick me out. I wonder why. No. But I was telling that story, and he came to me and apologized, and he said, "I'm so sorry, brother. I'm so sorry, sir, that this happens to you. I am white, cisgender, male, blah, blah, blah. And I just flew through an airport. No qualms, no problems. And I'm sorry that you're deprived this. I'm sucking the oxygen out of the room just by speaking to you now." And I said, brother, and I didn't even have these concepts then that I'm wrestling with as well. But I said, brother, I reject your apology. And then he doubled down on the apology and said, oh, I probably didn't apologize well enough. I'm so sorry that I did not apologize. He was going deeper into layers of rabbit holing, right? And I held him before he went too deep. And I said, I'm not rejecting your apology because you didn't say it right. I'm rejecting your apology because if I accepted it, I would be accepting the economy of relations that traps me into one notion of power. Yes, my body may not be able to transit through an airport as yours does, but do you know how to dance with ancestors? Do you know how to stay in a dream and stay with fire? Do you know how to listen to the orishas? Do you know what it means to seek abundance beyond monetary economies? Do you know these things? We're so stuck in a notion of privilege and power that reinstalls this, that works with our ideas of the remedy, but the remedy fixes us. The solution fixes us in place, right? In order to be fixed, you need to show up. And when you show up, the city state takes you and brands you and makes you legible. So the remedy becomes a double agent. It gives temporary relief, but then this relief postpones the way that it still uses you to maintain itself. And that's what we'll start with in the next class. We'll start with a discussion of harm, and we'll explore beyond harm what is the shimmering brilliance of the parapolitical, and what is it inviting us to do? What is the parapragmatic? What is being invited here? I think I'll stop there for now so we can have some conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Stop my share. Okay. Okay. Theo is ready. There you go. Yes, brother.
Thank you, Bio.
Yes.
I was just, reflecting on that idea of, you can't stand anywhere without being accommodated, and thinking about when you use some of those ideas like, I want to travel, I want to fly, or lines of flight from,
Yes, yes.
is that to a different accommodation? Or is that to the power political, the power ontological, is that an accommodation? Or is it somewhere else? And
I love this.
I think in sitting with all of that, I go to failure and you're kind of,
Yes,
you fail and you don't know where you go from there is I think kind of where you might take this. But yeah, that's my
yes.
question.
Brilliant, brother. It gives me a chance to address this. Accommodations are in their accommodating dynamics. They produce cracks. Okay, that's where the crack comes from. The crack is the point of the line of flight. So the accommodation is assiduously dedicated to maintaining a kind of world. It wants to maintain a kind of world, but in doing so, it produces things that do not fit into its body, right? These are things that do not, it cannot account for. It doesn't know what to do with it, so it pathologizes it, it dismisses it, it externalizes it. These are cracks, they're openings in the accommodation. And it's in the accommodation that we learn to say things like, ooh, I want out, right? Even though we don't know how that happens. We don't have a stable theory of change, but the desire is just as theoretical and dense and possible, right? So we say, I want out. The feeling didn't come from virtue. I'm not trying to be virtuous when I say I want out of whiteness. It's that the accommodation has cracked open in a way, and I'm somewhat enlisted by that cracking open, right? There's a cartoon called Common Side Effects. Do you watch cartoons? You strike me as someone who watches lots of cartoons, like me. Well, sorry, brother. You
I'm
should.
sorry too.
Everyone should watch cartoons. Common Side Effects, I've spoken about this before, is about a dude who happens upon a magical mushroom. Not just yes, Sheba. Not just psychedelic. They're not psychedelic for just getting a high. They actually have monumental biological effects, medicinal effects. Just a sprinkling of that mushroom, if it's grounded, can cure someone of the most potent of diseases, right? You can kill a bird and sprinkle the mushroom in the mouth of said pigeon, and the pigeon comes back to life. That's the premise, that this dude happens upon a strange mushroom that shouldn't exist, right? Now, the pharmaceutical industry is out to kill this guy. That's the entire plot. Of course, right? Because if this guy perpetuated and proliferated this technology, then there will be no need for the medicines we take, right? That makes billions of dollars for the pharmaceutical industry. So the whole thing is set on that premise. But this guy wants to find how to grow these mushrooms. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know where they came from. He just happened upon pieces of them. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. He finds, strangely and ironically enough, that the mushroom is produced by the runoff of chemicals from the pharmaceutical world. Their toxic dumps created the mushroom. Isn't that astounding? Whoever wrote that plot, I need to have a conversation with them. And isn't it astounding? Like the chemical toxic waste is the condition for the growth of that mushroom. That's a crack. The accommodation is surprised by it because all he wants to do is just toxic waste everywhere. But in the creation of the waste, an excessiveness cracks open a monster, a mushroom that disturbs the account of profitability. And that's what accommodations do. They produce cracks.
Mm.
And I think parapolitics is the engendering of our bodies to the crack, but not just ours, but the engendering of gravity to the field that something else wants to be born.
Mm. Thank you.
The
By
cartoon
by
show
the
is called Common Side Effects for y'all who are interested. Yes, Theo.
just going to say, so it's like that question that I posed belongs to the accommodation in a way.
Yes. Yes, but that's fine, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, it's we are accommodated.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's nothing, and even through the crack, even if we a politics that is sensitive to the crack, that queers sensibility so that we're alive to other shimmering forms of brilliance, will produce new accommodations, new kinds of accommodations, which will produce their own cracks, right? So this is not a march to utopia. This is the spiraling of a dragon, like my brother Josh Schry said recently. It's the spiraling of a dragon without end. Okay.
Thank you, Bye.
Thank you, Theo. Anyone else want to play for a while? Even things that you're confused about, we can stay with it. Leah?
Hi.
Hi.
My heart is racing. So yeah, it's good to be here with you, Bio. Thank you. Thank you for your work. And also this group of people. Hello. I see another Leah out there somewhere. So hi.
There are many.
I feel this question around this like sense of, and my words are like all jumbled. I don't even know what the question is. So maybe we can find it. I feel this like sense of you like pointing towards like these emergences aren't personal. They're not like mine. They're like in the field. They're like coming through us. But I also feel this like war within myself of this like sense of the narrowing of what guilt or shame, maybe how I would frame it, like what they do to make things personal. And like when like there's like explosions happening in my body in response to what's happening in the like world around, I feel this sense of like needing to take it personally in order to like tend to the impact, in order to like not hurt other people or not like be bombastic or whatever. And I feel like really caught between these tensions, and I feel caught between these tensions in particular fields more than others. So I don't feel that here with you all because I recognize that there's this like willingness.
Yes.
But I feel it so deeply in other contexts.
Yes.
And I guess I don't even know if it's like a reflection or a question or like
It's all of them.
What the fuck do we do?
All of I know. That question keeps on coming up. What do we do? But the invitation is to notice that what do we do is not a question that resolves along the lines, the geometric lines that we're used to. What do we do could be a ritual. And I'm not saying what do we do is we do a ritual. I'm saying the very question summons a ceremony of some kind. It summons a ritual. It summons a rite of passage. It's not just an epistemological concern, a challenge, like we're missing data, and all we need to do is apply the data. It's that this is deeply ontological. My dear colleague Laura Peña Zenata taught me this, right? It's an epistemology, and it's an epistemological challenge and ontological challenge, right? So it calls for bodies to be different in order to notice the world differently. We cannot sit in our chairs, so to speak, and summon the world to answer to us, right? Like, what do we do? What if what to do is not available, right? Again, I want to also speak very quickly that the personal is not a type. There's no typology here, that entanglement in parapolitics and then the personal, and sometimes the twain meet. No, it's that politics is already personal, and personal is already microbial and political and ancestral. So even when you say, I'm taking it personally, that's your microbes taking it personally. That's the ancestry taking it personally. And it's not that the politics comes through us. That presumes that there's an us, that things come through. It's that it comes as us. We are the outworkings of these questions, right? It's not that we're the recipients, we're the passive recipients of these confusions and these workings. It's that we're the outworking. We're the outworking of these things. Well, the confusions we have, the not knowing, that's the outworking of the dramatic and sometimes less than dramatic tensions in this moment. So you will not be saved, is what I'm trying to say. It's not that this is a politics of, oh, if I get it right, then we can be saved. No, we're part of this story that also includes not getting it right. Right? And that is, it means that even failure, even not wandering off the mark, what the Greeks would have called hamartia, right? Strain, even that is part of this story, this saga. And and I trust that that's liberating in some strange sense. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Still more questions to ask, I know. I thought I saw Andrea's hand up.
You did, but
There's
then I
a
wanted to be respectful of time.
no. We can make this the last question.
Thank you. You have inspired me since I first learned of you through the Science and Non-Duality Conference, through the Eternal Song, and you never disappoint. And I must say, I shared the first time I shared about what was going on with my bowels, and I didn't say that as any kind of call for self-pity or anything.
Right.
But what's interesting is I really do feel what's happening in my body. Like my body is a carrier and an agent of what's happening in the collective.
Yes.
And I am experiencing, I got an x-ray last week, and essentially the doctor told me that I have a lot of compacted stool. So essentially I'm full of shit, basically, which I have
Are you a
more.
stand-up comedian in your spare time? That's
I'm elated more by integrity than self-importance, so I don't care sharing that. But there is something about staying with this. It's not about fixing the problem. I mean, I am going to do what I am going to do, but
Yes.
there's the intelligence in that space between, oh, here is what is,
Yes.
and where is it have its own intelligence. Like even the
Yes.
accommodations, even the whiteness has something to teach us if we stay long enough, so that the next iteration of whatever wants to come through may come through. Because I have discovered that nature, life itself, is way too creative to keep anything on the side. Everything is welcome as part of the next iteration of something. Like
Right.
you shared beautifully about the mushroom that itself comes from the from the runoff. When
Yes.
we let life, which is us, do its thing beneath our trying to manage and mitigate it,
Right.
there's a beauty and intelligence and a wisdom in it that I cannot comprehend from my mind. And so that's how I'm looking to approach this. And it seems like a simple thing, and it is, but there is a component of what the whiteness wanting to stay, not
Yes.
wanting to leave,
Yes.
and
Yes.
not making that wrong either, giving it a
Yes.
chance to have its final say,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
change.
That is profound, and that's a rare thing to say, right? It comes from it. There are very rare thinkers in Black studies that I deeply respect that would echo the sentiments you've just shared. Because I think one of the geniuses of whiteness has been to create anti-whiteness. It's because that's the way it maintains itself. That's the way it reassures itself that it's real. And I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not the one who would think in terms of the apparent or the illusionary. I'm not saying it's not real. It is real, right? But the thing is in how we are practiced into the thing is how we're practiced into sustaining it, right? You could be anti this and anti that, and you miss out on all the leakages, all the ways that systems leak and spill and slip, right? And whiteness slips and spills and leaks all the time. It just does a good job at repackaging itself. And one of the ways it does this is with anti this and anti that, right? So That's why I suppose, and it's only a supposing, I suppose in my creaturely finiteness that when we attend to the cracks, to those spillages, something strange is happening as us. And it's not something we start to do as if okay, I'm going to attend to the cracks on Thursday. It's how our bodies are already showing up in the world. And when you said we're going to do what we're going to do, yes, we're part of doings that are more prestigious than origins. And so, yes, I really want to hold your beautiful lamentation and confession and poetry in noticing that sometimes the act of leaving the scene reproduces the logic of the scene. Did I say in the last class that, I'm not sure if I did, but that there are 20 million plus preppers in the United States? You know what a prepper is? Preppers are, like they're preparing for the eventual zombie apocalypse. And so they're 20, it usually was largely populated by white people, but it cuts across racial lines now, especially in times when we're learning that billionaires have bunkers and all of that. So it's a thriving movement. 20 million plus people in the United States are survivalists, and they go and retreat because they are anti-modern. So I'm writing an essay about a certain survivalist prepper who denounces the city and goes into the forest and stockpiles on guns and baked beans and stuff, right? And and hot dogs and all of that. And then realizes, oh my goodness, people might steal this from me. So I'm going to build a fence. Then I'm going to electrify the fence so no one gets in. But I need some people to also join me in tilling the soil and helping with the cattle. So I'm going to bring in more people. And then by and by, I'm revealing the plot twist here. He looks back and realizes he just made a new city. So it's sometimes when we're anti this, we just replicate the patterns. And that's why we speak of cracks. But thank you. Thank you, sis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we are 5 minutes into African time. And this is the point where I pass back to Wei. And thank you for showing up. This is tough meat, tough food to chew on. We will meet next week again for the 5th one. I want to say that I'm going to have recorded interviews with Professor Erin Manning, with Professor Geshikarure Sabina, and Laura Pena Zanata. And we'll record these. They don't have to be live so that we can have more discussions and content. But our next class is March 26th. So good time to eat on stuff. But slides will come to you today. The recording will be out. Thank you so much, folks. Back to you, Wei.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we will add all the emails to our list. And yeah, thanks. Be well.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Bio.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Bio. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ubuntu.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ubuntu.